Welcome back to another exciting week of fishing in Texas, offshore, inshore, and on the lakes, with the recent rains and cooler water affecting the bite a little bit, right, Rick?
You're absolutely right, Brie, and exactly what you said. The cooler water and the rain has cooled off a lot of the places. More importantly, with the wind in the bays, what it's done is it has moved the fish around, whether you're talking freshwater or saltwater. We're going to get more into it in a minute.
Exactly, so get ready to do some catching on the Texas Insider Fishing Report starting now.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Rick and I are excited to share the latest news and tips our captains and guides have put together for a successful weekend on the water, right, Rick?
You're absolutely right, Brie, and as I said in the pre-open, the one thing that I've seen in all the guys' report is the little cooler water temperatures and all the rain cooled the water down in the freshwater, which has made the fish move in and out depending on whether they got a lot of sun or not. And then on saltwater, the wind has been blowing a lot of the water around, so the redfish are 1 minute they're up in these little ponds and lakes, and the next minute they're out holding in the bays. It just depends on what the weather's doing.
Well, we got a lot of moving
going on.
Got to listen up. Before we dive on in, let's say hi to Dave. And what has he prepared over there at the workbench? Dave.
Well, we got some really cool artwork from Rick over here on the whiteboard that we're going to be talking about how you're fishing around jetties and stuff, how to fish the deeper water and the faster water, where the fish are going to stage depending on the tide. You know, the weather's important, but the tide is as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight.
There we go. You're an artist and a captain.
Yes, he is.
I'm continually impressed by you, Rick.
Oh, thank you, Brie. She's working on a raise, I guess, guys.
Maybe. The Upper Crust region is our first stop today, so if Lake Tawakoni, Fork, Athens, Lavon, and Texoma sound familiar, sit on down and listen up to Mike McFarland.
Hey, Brie. Hey, Captain.
How you doing, bud?
Awesome. Great to be here. Let's talk about the largemouth bass first. Texoma. Bass are being caught in 12 to 15 feet of water on Alabama rigs and jerkbaits like the Berkeley Stunna Shad 112. Also, some shallow fish are being caught again on swim jigs in natural and brim colors. Going on to Cedar Creek, frogs and wacky rigged worms in oxblood colors fished up in the shallows, looking for beds, of course. And some of the fish still being caught deep there as well on 10 to 15 feet, Berkeley crankbaits, again, shad colors. Lake Possum Kingdom with Pete Hernandez. Bass is fair there. The full moon has pushed up a lot of fish, but the cold has pulled some of them back. So they're still on the spawning flats. Topwater bite is also picked up there, and the bed fishing is good on any of the main lake, major creek arms, or secondary creek arms. Lake Athens with guide Jay Bonner. 68 to 71, the fish are still on beds and spawning there. Texas rig creature baits in natural colors are your best. Grass lines and secondary points are also producing some fish using weightless bass assassins in the shad colors. Lake Lavon, we're still bass fishing on Lavon. Black bass continue to spawn there as well, bedded up in the shallows. Your morning time is your best to use the chartreuse chatterbaits, chartreuse and white spinnerbaits. 1 to 7 feet around the spawning flats and spawning areas. Top waters like the Berkeley Bullet Pop are catching bigger fish in the color bone white. And the shad spawn is starting to begin everywhere in all of our lakes, but definitely on Lavon. So square bills, Berkeley shallow diving square bill crankbaits used in 1 to 6 foot of water around riprap, hard clay, points, and gravel bottoms. They're catching fish all day long. Now we're coming to my favorite lake where I guide, Lake Fork. Bass fishing on Fork has really changed, as it is in all of our lakes up here. Recent heavy rains and 3-day cold spell has slowed them down, but the bass are still being caught in the northern ends of the lake around shallow cover and vegetation, still trying to spawn, and the spinnerbaits, wacky worms, and weightless bass assassins are all your best choices. Really look for the lake to warm back up and the spawn to resume by the time you're actually watching this on TV. Moving on, crappie fishing. Crappie fishing on Athens. The crappie on Athens are being found in brush piles in 10 to 15 feet of water. Small hair jigs, crappie jigs tipped with minnows are your best way to go. Crappie on Lake Fork. Still continues to be awesome. Mr. Jackie Wiggins seems to fill the limits no matter what, cold, hot, or shining, or cloudy. The Lake Fork crappie's really been good. Fish are being caught from the super shallow water all the way out to 30 feet. It seems that the best concentrations of fish are in 10 to 25 feet of water on timber and brush. You've seen some of the spawning fish on laydowns and stumps in 10 to 15. Instead of moving in the shallow water, they're spawning in those laydown trees and stumps. The small hand-tied jigs are working the best, but always a minnow, soft plastic. A minnow with a tip soft plastic is a very good approach as well. And pretty soon you're going to start to see a lot of those black crappie be post-spawn. They're going to load up and move into those post-spawn areas. Here's a great big catch with Jackie Wiggins.
You still there, Mike?
Yes, sir. Well, moving on. Stripers, white bass, and hybrids. Kerry Thorne. Cool trend has slowed them down just a little bit on Lavon, but they're still running in the creeks in the north end. Look for some type of structure that deflects the current, makes an eddy. Again, use the 4-pound test line, small crappie jigs, minnows, and inline spinners. Rooster tails are really good to use. Your best colors are white, silver chartreuse, and even black in the dirtier water. And also try small bass assassins. Real small bass assassins are working good. But Lake Tawakoni continues to be on fire. Matt Cartwright is just catching some beautiful, beautiful, really big stripers, hybrids, and white bass. Mixed bags. They're spawning in full spawn, long sandbars, rocks, humps, in depths of anywhere from 2 to 45 feet. If you'll just follow the birds, use your sonar to find these big schools of fish, swim bait, and 1-ounce flabs, it's limits all day long, every day. Here's a great picture of some of them beautiful big stripers after fishing with Matt Cartwright.
Nice.
Full picture.
All right, tell us about
a couple more things for catfish for you. Tawakoni is excellent. They're still in 1 to 3 feet around the shallow point. Catfish on Lavon, they're a little bit deeper. Baited fishing holes in 10 to 15 feet of water. Make sure you drop that chum in the rocks. It makes the fish work a little harder to get it. They stick around longer, gives you a better chance to catch them. And then, of course, channel catfish on Fork. As always, chum the hole the day before. Best locations are about 20 to 25 feet of water along the creek channels. Use punch bait and stink bait, and you catch a limit of fish on there almost every time you go.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. Good report. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Upper Fresh region hotspots from Mike's region. He says that Lake Tawakoni, stripers, and white bass continue to be in full swing spawn. The swim baits and slab spoons in white or white and chartreuse used in 2 to 45 feet of water are filling in easy daily limits with many fish being caught in excess of 10 pounds. And the best location are along the sandbars, the humps, the rock piles throughout the main basin of the lake. Don't forget that, guys.
All right, Captain Carl Weston is giving up all of the Fish Bites Upper Coast region weekend secrets. So Carl, tell us what's good and where we go to get it.
Yeah, it's hard for me to keep secrets, so let's get on it. Let's start out this week by chasing some of the big bull reds. The Galveston jetties is always a great place to catch big bull reds. Year-round, they're there. This time of year, they're a little better. The water temp is a little cooler, but they love that, so that's not going to hurt us chasing these big guys. I've talked to the anglers that are fishing the jetties near the mouth, throwing out a chum bag or two. This will bring the fish to the boat. Then you can start freelining shrimp, finger mullet, whatever you have, whatever you've caught, whatever you want to use. These fish love to eat. I would attempt to keep one on the bottom, usually run 2 out on top or near the top. Artificial is still a good choice, too, along those rocks, guys. That 110 Berkeley Magic Swimmer seems to be doing really good on an outgoing tide. And today we have a picture. Leo and his buddies bringing in some nice bull reds. And
nice.
Then switching over to trout. The trout bite's still rolling out steady this week here in the Upper Coast. The post week had been a little windy and rainy, but now we're getting some sun. It's going to get better this week. West Galveston Bay has bumped back up to 73 degrees already today, and the trout bite is on the east side of the Causeway Bridge. It's heating up over there, too. Texas City, bit slower bite, but it'll come around, guys. You know that area. Those fish move around chasing the bait. East Galveston Bay showing some improvement around the reefs and the open bays. Live shrimp on a popping cork is always going to be top. If you're looking for the artificial, that Fish Bites Fish Club shrimp on a Texas rig is a great choice right now. And here's Rick does an awesome picture. Mr. Ortega, 28-inch, 8-pound sea trout. Beautiful, his personal best. We wanted to throw that picture up today.
That's my personal
sea
best
trout.
too, man.
Oh, man.
That's a sea monster, Jack. All right, let's go offshore.
All right, deep dropping for tilefish, guys. Like we talked about we touched on it last year, is just becoming increasingly popular in the Upper Coast. I guess people finally figured out how good these fish actually taste, and they're bouncing over red snapper spots to catch the tilefish. So, it's a lot of fun. You let your bait drop to the bottom, and you don't know what you're going to catch when you're deep dropping that far. 1,000 foot of water, you're down. We use an R&R rig that makes a great deep drop with the glow skirts, which really helps. You can kind of charge them up in the sun. They go down, they hold that glow for a while. Now, as far as the tide will determine, and the current will determine your weight. If you've got a lot of current, you're going to need a lot more weight. I start with 2 or 3 pounds. I may go up to 5. But whatever keeps you on the bottom, keeps that tilefish rig flat. They like to feed, but you're going to have to be on top of them. So when you find that spot, you better deploy that Rodan and stay on it, because that sweet spot may not be very big, and you may not hit it again for hours trying to go back and forth. So I love my Rodan. That thing, it makes me look like a good fisherman. Another trick is don't be too hasty. When you feel a bite, maybe bump up a little bit, take a little slack out, wait a minute, wait for another bite. You'll catch 2, 3, sometimes 4 of these fish, and sometimes it'll be different kind of fish. So that's what makes it a lot of fun. Like we talked about last year, it's a must. You have to do this, guys. Tip those hooks with some fish bites first, and then put whatever bait you got on top. I tell you what's going to improve your catch ratio, because when that bait falls off, they're going to go after that fish bites, and you're going to catch them. We got a picture today of your friend Rick. Mr. Ryan has 2 of them on an R&R deep drop rig.
Nice. All right. What else you got for us this week?
Well, Dorado. We all love catching Dorado offshore. It's been a little hit and miss, like you said. It's been very windy. We've had some nasty weather, but about 65 miles offshore right now, there's some really decent current breaks. They're gathering up grass and debris. We're seeing bait in them. Watch the seagulls diving on the bait. You're going to know where the smaller bait that's a Dorado are chasing. Trolling an Islander has been really hot in green and yellow, about 6 knots right now. Water's a little cooler, so slow down maybe a little bit. Naked ballyhoo is always a hit. I run them about 75 feet behind the boat and then mix in my lures. And, I always run one shotgun out deep with a bigger lure, because sometimes those big bulls will hide behind the cows. And we have a picture here today with Tosh with a little Dorito, as we call them.
Oh. Nice picture. Thank you for all the good tips this week. Carl, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Upper Coast hotspots. Carl says that we're going to go chase those big bull reds using Berkeley 110 magic swimmers and green mackerel along the jetties. And then offshore, deep dropping in 1,000 feet depths, ranging with the R&R tackle tilefish rig, load the hooks with cut bait, and then tip them with some fish bites for your drop.
Whether it's a Dorado or a Dorito, those things always make me just so happy to talk about. All right, coming up, the TRON Middle Fresh region has a lot to share with us, but first, Dave is at the workbench for Academy Sports and Outdoors Rigs and Techniques Share Sesh.
Yeah, we're going to have a little sharing. Rick's going to share how he won all that money in Texas on those redfish. He got rich down there.
You think he's going to share all of it or just some of it?
I think he's going to give us all. He's going to give us,
he's going to give the whole shebang.
The whole shebang.
All in 2 minutes.
And Dave's stealing money again.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Fenwick. Feel everything. Bahio Sunglasses. Blue light blocking. Radically clear lenses. Sportsman's Adventures with Captain Rick Murphy. Fishing for adventure. Berkeley, your fish, our science. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
Dave, we're here at the workbench talking about fishing jetties.
Yeah.
A lot of the fellas, all of them. Last week, Chad was talking in the lower coast region about the sheep's heads on the jetty. And then this week, we got Bink talking about jetties.
The big reds.
Carl just talked about it.
Yeah, so let's go into a little bit about how you go about attacking a jetty, because everybody has access to these jetties. That's the great thing about them, especially in Texas. They got those great big long jetties, and people can access them by foot or by boat. So these are a great place to go and try to catch these fish, because they attract all kinds of game fish. whenever you have an outflow and an inflow of water into a bay, they're going to stack up there. So how would you go ahead and attack a jetty and an inlet system like this? So different tides.
Understand what I'm going to tell you is just a general rule of thumb that we used when we were fishing the professional redfish tournaments. It worked very well for us. The first thing that we wanted to do is recognize that is the tide coming in. So I use this color for incoming tide. And as you can see, we have the arrow. This is what it would be going into the jetty. Now remember this, guys, wind and tide sometimes working together can magnify the current. So if you've got an east wind or a southeast wind and it's slightly behind the tide coming in, it's gonna have a tendency to push all the bait along the beach. And then when these fish that are moving down the beach hit the jetty, they gotta go out and around to get to the jetty.
Right.
This is where you're gonna wanna set up on the incoming tide, always on the ocean side of the jetty. So if you're over on this side, unfortunately, what you might have is a slick side, but you're still going to have tide coming in, so you'd be set up over here. Now remember this as well. On the outgoing tide, what's going to happen is it's going to cause a big eddy as the tide flows out. This would be slick because the wind is being knocked down by the jetty itself.
Right.
But as this tide comes out, it causes this big whirlpool. Those fish don't want to be in that washing machine.
No.
They're going to move on the outgoing tide. They're going to move inside of the jetty, and this is where you're going to lay up. So now that we've established how the tide and the wind and where to position on incoming versus outgoing, Dave, I want to tell you this is really was a key for us. I drew what I thought the jetty looks like to me. So with it being said, here's this pyramid. Now, you only see in the very upper third or even upper 25% of the jetty.
Yeah.
The mistake that a lot of guys do is they get close enough to throw to the jetty, but down here on the bottom, they're actually getting snagged all the time because the pyramid
don't realize it's coming out
sloping out.
Yeah.
What we learned, Paige and I learned, is that the fish would suspend and we would use deep crankbaits or vertical jig. Some of the other fellows would vertical jig, but where you had fish staging mid-depth, and then you also had fish staging at the bottom where they could lay a transition into the sand. So 20 to 30 feet is usually what the generalization is of all those jetties. Now you're gonna wanna use a pretty heavy rod so that you can stop these fish like this pin carnage. Use a big heavy bait caster.
Fathom 2, yeah.
The Fathom 2. This has got some real heavy duty pulling ability.
And it'll cast as well.
Then you
it's
can
made
cast.
for casting, and it's got a big crank on it too, so you can move those big bull reds up off the bottom.
So Berkeley has a whole plethora of different lipless crankbaits. They make them all the way up to 1 ounce.
Right.
And these things work really well because you can throw them down the jetty, and that was the key to what Paige and I did. We didn't vertically fish. We would throw parallel to the jetty, and then we would try to have our lure, whether it was a deep running crankbait, when that lip would hit a rock and deflect and it would break that vibration, almost 90% of the time we would get a bite. The same thing. Because of a lipless crankbait, by nature, it swims like this. This would hit the rock, deflect off, and because it broke that vibration, boom, you would get the bite. The other thing that guys would do is they would use, weighted jigs and then vertically jig up and down. The key is use your electronics and see where the fish are staging. Most of them are going to stage between the halfway point all the way down to the bottom. Depending on how big the school is. You can also use jig heads and knocker rigs, which you created here, so you could sit anchored inside on the outgoing tide, and then put you a big table shrimp on this right here, or you could put a piece of chunk of mullet or fish bites and let it lay on the bottom. Stick it in the rod holder, let the rod holder hook him, because the rod holder's undefeated.
He's the best. Rodney is the best.
Every time. You can put a fish bite shrimp. If this was a regular shrimp, we would just simply rig it like this on a jig head like you got here. And we're just gonna go through the mouth of the shrimp and pop it out. And then now he's gonna swim perfectly in the current. He's just gonna lay there perfectly. And that's all you gotta do.
Just bounce him on the bottom.
the big thing is, if you're going to use artificials, you got to make sure that you're in that transition. I like that last 5 feet of bottom.
Yeah.
Whether you're bouncing it off the rocks or bouncing it off the sand, that's where they're going to be.
No matter what kind of fishing it is, you got to have your bait where they are.
Absolutely.
They got to be in the zone.
You did a good job tonight.
I know, man.
Wow, Dave.
That was awesome.
That's the least I ever heard you talk. He definitely shared the whole enchilada.
Hey, I was
on that
learning
one.
the whole time.
Me
You know,
too.
I like to learn a little bit.
Me too. All right, Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn are the places to be this weekend in the Star-Tron Middle Fresh region. So let's hear how our guide Matt Loescher is getting on the big ones. Matt, hello.
Hey, Brie.
You're there.
Yeah, it's we got a lot going on here in the Middle Fresh region right now. A lot of moving taking place. We got some springtime madness happening right now, and we're gonna talk about the largemouth bass fishing first off this week, like we normally do. It's gonna stick to Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn this week because they're just really on fire. You know, there's just a lot going on here and a lot of fun stuff. So starting off with Toledo Bend, you know, we've had a lot of change happening lately. You know, the bite is good, but it's a little tricky right now because the fish are just moving around a lot. The spawn bite has been the most consistent bite, and that's especially true now that we have a lot more water in the lake. The lake level is around 170.9 right now, so it's about just a little more than a foot below full level. It's come up a lot from all the recent rains, and the temperature is about 65. I'm sorry, not 165, but 65 to 72. Things cooled off a lot last week, and then they've warmed back up slowly from all that cool rain. And, you know, the more it heats up, the more the bite heats up as well. Those fish get more active. It's only a tricky bite right now because the fish have been moving around so much, but they are biting when you get around them. You just got to stay moving and keep trying new things. The shad are also starting to spawn right now, and the water level, you know, has been fluctuating. So there's just a lot going on. So just try to simplify it the best you can. Use your confidence baits. The best way I've found to locate the fish is to stick to the spawning areas that have the best cover, fish around in those spawning coves and things like that, and fish from the bank out to about 6 feet. And then you can get out in front of some of those spawning coves and move on out. And you may still only be in 6 feet, but you might be way out off the bank. You know, on Toledo Bend here, we've got a lot of long tapering flat points and stuff like that run way out in the lake. So you want to stick to the shallow stuff, but it's okay to get on out in the lake because they are using those areas as well. The springtime staples for the baits are still good. Your Bass Assassin Vapor Shads, Fat Jobs, and the Whoopah Craws are all putting fish in the boat right now. I like to rig them as light as possible from weightless up to about a 1/4 ounce at the most for the windier spots if you're out there kind of more on the main lake. And then for moving baits, a vibrating jig and a spinner bait have both been good as well. And I got a photo here for you of Mr. Ethan Locke, who fished with my fellow guide, Mr. Brandon O'Neill, recently. Caught himself a nice Toledo Bend fish there.
Not too bad.
Now we're going to move over to Sam Rayburn. Rayburn also caught a lot of rain this past week. And, you know, so it's come up some more. It's sitting about 8 inches over pool level. Thankfully, it hasn't gotten extremely high, so it's not way up in the woods where they can get away from you as much. The water temperature is hovering in that 68 to 72 degree range, and the shallow bite is just on fire there. I'm hearing that the fish are hammering frogs over there right now, and who doesn't like to do that? That's most of our favorite way to catch them, of course. And anytime you're frog fishing, you want to have that backup bait ready. So if that fish misses a frog, sling that Bass Assassin Fat Job or a Vapor Shad in there, rigged up weightless as a follow-up bait, and you can catch those fish most of the time. Now, if you get a day when the frog bite just isn't happening for whatever reason, the Carolina rig inside the grass lines is also another great option at Rayburn right now. I'm going to swap over to the crappie. Toledo Bend really pumping out the crappie right now. Folks are catching big numbers, and they're catching them about every way that you can fish for them. They're being caught on the bridges, the docks, even the deep timber. And then also the shallow spawn bite is still going on, especially on the southern end of the lake. So you can really pick your poison. I would go shallow for the larger fish and then out deeper for the numbers. Jigs are predominant right now. Cast it on a light jig head, but minnows always work too. You can put them under a slip cork and drift them over those fish. Got another photo here for you of a nice mess of Toledo Bend slabs. Some guys fished with my buddy Michael Shanley here at LTD Guide Service. He's always putting his clients on the fish. You can tell they caught a good mess of them right there, and had a few yellow bass mixed in as well, looks like.
Looks nice.
Yeah, and finishing up, Sam Rayburn, the crappie have finally made it up shallow over there. You know, everybody was saying they're just not up shallow over there as early this year. They were a little late, but I am hearing good reports of a shallow crappie bite over there, and that more rain coming in and that water level rising even more is just going to probably help that bite. So a jig or a minnow under a cork around the bushes and those inside grass lines is going to catch them over there.
Good job with your debut on your Zoom, dude. We appreciate it this week. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Rodan Marine Systems hotspots. All right, well, hey, you did a good job. I said it. I just wanted to make sure you heard it.
Good job, Matt.
Awesome.
All right, I love the studio away from home. He looks good.
Yeah.
All right, bud, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Rodan Marine Systems hotspots. He says the shallow bite on Sam Rayburn and the Toledo Bend is hot for bass, and the crappie fishing's good on both lakes as well.
All right, well, the lower fresh and lower coast regions are coming up right with your weekend catch menu, so stay hooked. And to keep up with all things fishing in Texas, make sure to head on over to our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and to see new fishing adventures along with our reports, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Captain Rick Murphy, not Brie Gabrielle. See you soon.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Berkeley, your fish, our science. Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com. Tin Cup, Mountain Whiskey. Shallow Sport, the Texas legend. Rodan, set it, forget it, catch more fish. And Penn, let the battle begin.
Today's Powerful tip is about the new Powerful Charge power management station. The cool thing about the Charge is it replaces 3 systems on your boat. It replaces your traditional 3 or 4 bank battery charger, so when you're at the house, you plug it into the wall. The Powerful Charge is going to optimize and balance your batteries like nothing ever out there. It also replaces your on-the-run charger, so anytime you've got the Yamaha running, it's going to replace the power in your trolling motor batteries and your cranking batteries all day while you're running from spot to spot. And the third thing it does, it's got an emergency start feature in it. So if you're ever out there and your cranking battery dies and you can't get the motor started, go to the Sea Monster app, transfer the power, and you're good to go. Get back to the dock. For any more information about the PowerPole Charge, you can go to powerpole.com or stop by one of your local dealers. That's your PowerPole tip.
You know, Brie, Dan talked about the emergency start feature. I was out in the Gulf the other day and I was running the radio and running the electronics and running the live well pump.
Sucking that battery.
And we sat there for 6 hours catching fish, and guess what? When
happened?
I went to go home, it wouldn't start. Thank goodness I had the charge, because I went to the emergency start feature, and I'm 30 miles away from home and no phone signal. Push the button, jump my thing, a minute and a half later, and off and running.
Lifesaver.
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 Otherwise, y'all might still be looking for me.
And that's your PowerPole tip.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not. We wouldn't be. If the lower fresh region is on your fishing radar this weekend, Choke Canyon, Fayette County, Somerville, and Lake Falcon are all good places to be. Let's get with Matt Reed to get more details. And we hope you had a very happy birthday. Let's get to fishing, Matt.
All right, it's getting time to talk about the South Texas largemouth. Mike Bates has sent me a report from Choke Canyon. Got a good little bit of much-needed rainfall, and the lake level has started to rise slowly. The water temperatures are still around 68 to 70 degrees. There are a few fish still spawning, and all those fish are in less than 5 feet of water. Moving baits and soft plastics have been working best for those. Majority of the bass have finished spawning, and that coincides with the shad spawn, which is a great time for them to feed up shallow that first hour of the day. Moving baits like chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, and lipless crankbaits are working well. After that, Texas rig soft plastic stick baits and Carolina rig plastics and deep diving crankbaits are working well in that 10 to 15 foot range for those fall spawn fish. Fayette County been a little bit slower this week. Midday bite has been fairly good in that mid range, in that 8 to 10 foot. Still more fish are moving offshore. On those shallow fish, the soft plastic stick baits and fluke style baits are working best. Also a frog bite around that grass edge. There's crankbait
crankbait and Carolina rig fish are showing up in 10 to 20 feet on the points. That's where most of them are moving now. After, that's a hot water lake, so they're moving out quicker. Greg Boyd, sending a report from Somerville. Spawn is just about to wind down, but the shad spawn is kicked off, which means those post spawners are feeding really well. You're catching those on spinner baits and shallow crankbaits around the shallow rock. There's some post spawn fish also moving out, showing up out on the road beds and main lake points. They're biting, the regular old Carolina style baits, the creature baits, and the fluke style baits. Falcon Lake bass are definitely still biting. The shallow bite around the shad spawn is still the most consistent. Vibrating jigs and square bills are the best option to catch those fish. There's definitely more and more showing up out in that 10 to 15 foot of water. Shaky heads and crankbaits are working best to catch those deeper ones. The numbers out on the deeper water should be getting better by the day. Got 3 pictures of some Falcon specials from the last little bit of time. I never get enough of looking at those big old fish and the smiles that go with them.
Rick's not smiling.
I can't help it.
Oh my goodness, look at this mess.
Let's talk about the
amazing.
crappie. Like Somerville, the crappie are still very good on the brush piles off the Overlook Marina dock. Small minnows and jigs are catching those fish. Down at Falcon, the crappie have returned to the brush piles from their spawning run. Numbers are improving every day. 8-ounce jigs are the bait of choice. Red chartreuse, June bug chartreuse are my personal favorite. Dinner is waiting to be served. Come get you some.
Matt, you're going to keep it up, and now the next thing that's going to happen is you and I going to be roommates.
Well, if you would keep it from freezing and raining when you try to come down there, it would help.
Murphy's Law.
That wasn't me. That was old Shaw, bub. That was old Shaw. All right, man. Thank you so much. We're going to talk to you next week, but it is time for the hot spots from the lower fresh region. He said Falcon Lake crappie are stacked up in the man-made brush piles. Get your favorite fishing buddy and go get a limit of wonderful tasting fillets. And then they are in the 15-foot range, and an 8-ounce jig in several colors can fill your limit, Brie.
A filet, you say?
Filet.
A filet. I'm feeling it. All right. We're always reeling in good times and big fish in the lower coast region with Captain Chad Kinney. So let's see what happiness this weekend is bringing us.
I tell you what, the fishing's been really good, inshore and offshore. I wish we had more time to do more stuff. It's going on even with the inclement weather. It's going to be nice this weekend, so I see that to be really picking up a bunch. I just got back in from the shrimp boat from the marina here at Mansfield Marina. We caught a ton of shrimp and bait. I see a bunch of fries coming up, so I think the bait system's in great shape down here as far as food for what they're going to eat, which makes a huge difference, for the bait system here. And also, actually, 1 month from today, we got the Shallow Sport Tournament we've been talking about. That's coming up here at South Padre Island. So 1 month from today, we'll be down there heading out to fish that. So talking about inshore, had a lot of guys. We've been heading up to the land cut. Hit there from Corpus Christi or Port Mansfield. Head to the land cut. If you're looking for some black drum action, that'll hold on for just a little bit with these cooler temps and stuff we've been having. And also, you can try for some flounder while you're up there along those guts and stuff in the land cut's a good spot for it. Talking about black drum, we don't talk a whole bunch about these guys throughout the year, but it's been pretty good numbers up there, and they're really good in the land cut. You can use some FISHBITES, use a light Carolina rig, easily just like a 1/2 ounce to 3/4 ounce egg sinker, and put that on your main line and tie a swivel right there, and then use a little shock leader, maybe like a 20-30 pound diamond Mamoy with a little tail hook on the end of that would work perfect. The fish are in those oil guts, all up in that land cut, and then the drop-offs of the mouth of the oil guts going through there. The fresh dead shrimp works really good. Also, if you're doing that, one trick I've talked about before in the past, but you can take that head off that shrimp and peel off the outer layer right there. It'll give it a lot more scent, and you can pin that eagle claw tail hook right in the back of that tail and throw it up there in that Carolina rig like I'm talking about. Just leave it on the bottom, so let it sit there, and you'll have some good results there. It can be a lot of fun. Also, it's plus when we get the season right here, we got a windy season down here in South Texas where we get these fronts blowing in. It's a great place to kind of get out of the weather. You can hide and enjoy it. You won't get windburn and stuff. You have plenty of fish to catch. So I got a good picture here of a black drum with a buddy of mine, James Dunks.
He's with Slam Dunks Charters around the X3 Shallow Sport right there.
Yes, sir.
Moving over to, he's a good guy. Moving over to flounder. Flounder fishing, it takes a lot of knowledge kind of where to find it, but basically it takes a lot of patience at times. So try that North Land cut right now. Also, it's working. Fish those guts and drop-offs, especially since we just had some rain, which we needed really, really bad. But that rainfall, what it's going to do is some of those little washouts and stuff like that, with this north wind especially, they're going to fall out there. The water's going to be moving off of that. The bait's going to be moving. You start seeing bait flipping and going. Those flounder are just going to lay there and ambush that bait when it goes off those guts. So you can use like an 1/8 ounce to 1/4 ounce eagle claw jig head with those fish bites on it and just slowly bump it off the bottom. And when you get a bite, which I call the thump, make sure you just give it a slow delay, guys. And before setting the hook, kind of keep that drag a little bit looser, but give them a good stick and try to keep them in the water. They're going to try to jump out and always spit that hook on you. Got a good picture here of actually James's wife. I got it from a beautiful 4 to 5 pound class flounder there.
Oh, that's nice. All right, let's go offshore, Papa.
Yeah, offshore. Water temps are still a little bit cool for this year, but that's going to warm up, and we'll get that as the show goes on throughout the season. But the action we're talking about right now is the RG Reef. It's out of South Padre Island. This is a man-made deal. It's been there for several years. A lot of local business guys have built it up with money, and TPWD and a lot of their sponsors helped with a bunch of stuff. They sunk some boats. They made pyramids for snapper fishing, a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's in state waters, which is huge. So we're going to talk about our first species is the Jack Crevalle. These things we don't talk about a bunch either, but they're a great fight. They're really entertaining, especially if somebody hasn't been offshore much. They're a heck of a lot of fun. There have been some good numbers on the RGV Reef. You can get to the reef basically out of South Padre Island or Port Mansell. It's kind of stationed almost right in between. It is in state waters, so you can snapper fish right now also on that area, and you can troll around for some of the Jack Crevalle. And when we're using that, we're doing the troll and the mirror lure divers, and I'd go between 5 and 6 knots, maybe up to 7 knots in these guys, and they'll go ahead and they'll really hit it hard. Pen 16 wide is plenty for this stuff with a 30-pound Diamond Momoy mono. Use that. And like I said, they're a lot of fun. They're going to really pull. They can give you a workout. They're not good eating and stuff like that, so they're a lot of fun as far as having the sport with it. So, release them properly, and they'll get out there going. And there's been a bunch of those fish in that 15 to 30-pound class range. There's some big ones out there. So moving over to that, still talking about the RGV Reef, when you're there, there's also been the jackfish are there, of course, but then the Spanish mackerel are out there also. The lures, you can downsize on that mirror lure for a little bit. And then also you can go to a smaller islander with a daisy chain on it, works really good. These rigs, make sure you go with a wire leader since they're a mackerel family. They're really toothy. And the king mackerel, I expect to show up here really quick also. On these, still use the Penn 16 wide International. Works really great, or you can even get the Penn torque reels, which are really good. Like I said, those kingfish should be showing up, and I'll let you know when I get there. It shouldn't be too long.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to your report. And you know what? Brie and I are sad we won't be with you at the Shallow Sport Boats Owners Tournament. But, we got other things we got to do sometimes. And unfortunately.
Next year.
All right, we'll sign up for next year now. All right, bud. The Shallow Sport Lower Coast Hotspot. Speaking of Shallow Sport, inshore land cut on the Lower Coast has been good for black drum using fish bites and dead or live shrimp. And then the flounder action in the land cut, also working the guts and drop-offs for those flounder. And then if you want to go offshore, check out the Jack Crevalles and some Spanish mackerels at the RGV Reef out of South Padre Island.
Well, like Rick and Chad both have mentioned, coming up this May 11th is the 23rd annual Shallow Sport Owners Tournament on South Padre Island, where there will be over $250,000 in prizes, scavenger hunts, and a boat raffle. So head to shallowsporttournament.com for more info. We had a blast last year. I'm kind of bummed we're not going to fish it this year, but we're going to put it in the books for next year. It's Mother's Day weekend. All right, the Middle Coast region is ready and waiting to give you the Fishin' 411. But first, Dave has a little shopping 411 for us at the workbench for Taco Marine new products. Dave.
Yes,
take us shopping.
Well, I don't ever have to shop, thank goodness. I get my stuff for free.
Oh, wow.
But no,
Big time.
We're talking a little bit about some of these nice rods and reels and awesome lures. So,
ooh, for free. Yeah, we'll be back.
For me.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Abu Garcia, Fish to Win. Fenwick, feel everything. Diamond Fishing Products, our reputation is on the line. Island Lures, Tournament Tackle. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a Miro Lure. And StarTron. Start, run, and store with StarTron.
Well, we're here at the workbench, and it is time to troll the edge with Taco Marine, Dave. So what kind of new products do we have this week?
Well, you know, we're seeing how we're trolling the edge. You know, a lot of the guys like to troll, and now we got all these cool cameras. We can see what we got back there. You know, forever we were always thinking, well, what if we just troll around, you know, and how cool would it be if we could see what was back there? And we never could. But now we can with this Troll Pro 3. Hard to say. The Troll Pro 3. Anyway, you can put your camera in this housing, in your GoPros or even a Garmin, little Garmin camera, the Verbs. They will fit right in here, and they come with a little tool and a screw that comes through in here through the side, and you can mount your camera in there, and you can put that camera anywhere in the spread on another rod and reel, or you can attach it to your dredges, put it right in the middle of the dredge, so when the fish come up to see the dredge, you got them on camera. And if you've got a good camera, you can have it you can be watching it through your phone as the stuff's coming up into the spread. You don't even see half that stuff that's swimming around down there. But these are really cool because you can do that. It comes with a 32-ounce weight as well, so you can run it either by itself or inside the dredges, or you can actually put a clip on a line in front of it and have two rods and have another line coming down to the clip and have your bait right behind the camera. So when the fish comes up to eat the bait, you got a good view of it. So there's really cool things we can do now.
My right-hand man, Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff, we got new toys, baby.
Yeah, man. That's the Fish Razor. Go to fishrazor.com to get a Troll Pro 3, or trollpro.com too. They've got a bunch of videos and show you what you can look at there as well. Next, we got the Island Lure, the tracker. You know, we probably don't give Island Lure enough love because, man, they are some of the best lures out there, and as far as offshore trolling goes, and everything eats them. You know, they were made at first to be trolled because the guy didn't like to use bait. So, but we always put bait in them. You know,
right.
You put a ballyhoo in there, and it catches everything in the ocean. They got different colored heads. They're all about the same size. The little trackers are. They're 4 1/4 inches long and weigh 3/4 of an ounce. But you can get, there's so many different colors. They also have the Mylar, the Flasher series that comes with Mylar. They got the E series that come with 2-3 tone skirts. So there's just a million things to do with them. You can either fish them by themselves, you can fish them with a bait, you can put them on your dredges, which is what we do. We dress up a dredge and make them all pretty. Fish it with a 7/0 in the back. Just dozens of color combinations, and they catch everything. So.
Good job.
Go to islandlures.com to get your trackers.
All right.
Next here we got some soft baits from Chompers. Is a bass company. I think they're in Missouri, but they make some really cool stuff. That's the Wild Hog creature bait, creature or crawl bait. They get garlic and salt infused.
You can really smell it.
They do have a lot of garlic in them.
I don't think I'm going to taste this one.
No, they come in 3.5 and 4.5 inches. That Wild Hog there, and that'd be great for pitching or punching, either one. Put it on a jig and just put that thing through the water, because they got all these tiny little tentacles on here and stuff to make all kinds of motion. They also have a crawl tube, which if you want a bigger profile and a bigger punch bait, made for any kind of jig head or a Carolina rig.
Man, you can smell the garlic.
Yeah, and it's got the nice ribbed on the outside, so it moves a lot of water, and a pulsating skirt, so you can bounce it on a jig or just punch it.
Is that what you say, pulsating?
A pulsating skirt.
Not to be mistaken for jubilating.
Not for jubilating, no.
Okay.
But you go to chompers.com. They have all kinds of soft baits for you to take a look at.
Hey, when more do you go?
Next, we got the Strike Zone. These are their surf rods. They come from an 11, 12, and 13. I'll hand you the 12, I believe is what that is.
Right.
The 11 is 16 to 30 pound braid. The 12 is 20 to 40 pound, and the 13 is 20 to 50. Top quality Fuji rods, guides, and seats. They're made to hold all that weight and still have a soft tip, so you can telescopes your bite to you, let you know that you're getting a bite. They got these really nice slick handles. They're not foam. They slick.
Feel really good in your hand.
They feel real good in your hand, and they're easy to clean. And when you try to put foam out on the beach when all the bait and stuff, they get dirty and the sand eats them up. It's not going to do it to these. So go out there and get your Strike Zone surf fishing rods. Call 904-641-2433. You have to call the shop to get these.
All right, call the shop, guys.
Rick,
Call the shop.
I am disappointed you did not try that yummy looking treat there infused with garlic. We'll do that at the end. All right, we're looking at a sunny side up kind of weekend in the Middle Coast region. So let's see what good news Captain Bink Grimes is blessing us with. Hello, Bink.
How y'all doing? We've had some dreary weather the past 10 days in April, but the good news is the sunshine has reappeared in Texas. Trout are slicking on the shorelines in the morning. It's a sweet aroma, much like fresh cut grass or watermelon, but that smell and that sheen tells you that those fish are there to eat. Our fishery along the Middle Coast has come alive this week. Waders taking advantage of trout along the shorelines. Been some good fish caught in the middle of East Matagorda Bay, caught and released, fished 6 to 8 pounds. Then guide Ray Sexton said in Palacios, the guts are holding trout over sand and grass on soft plastic. He's like that magic grass color in the Bass Assassin. It's been his go-to bait. Then the reefs in San Antonio Bay has been good on Bass Assassin, those 5-inch shad rigged on 1/16-ounce jigs. Topwater bites been kicking off as well. Our water temperatures are running about 70 degrees. Those mirror she dogs and the pink and bone and the chartreuse have been good. The same pattern's holding true along the reefs, sand and grass pockets of West Matagorda Bay, where those sheep pups have done real well. In Rockport, guide Rhett Price said the Corkies continue to coax good trout on the shorelines around Mud Island and Trailer Island. The incoming tide's been good around Super Flat, around that Port Aransas area. We've got really high tides right now. We've got a low in the Gulf right now that's really pumping up our tides. So all those flats are really good. Port O'Connor anglers, they found their best trout in the back lakes. Again, because of the high tides, Pringle and Conti have been good on Mirror soft time. Then the reefs around Ayers Dugout and Panther Point have been good as well. The higher tides have been good for reefs in Bastrop Bay near Freeport. The photo there, that's a solid 5-pound trout released by Owen Cossack of East Bernard. Owen's father, Kevin, guides for me out of the Sunrise Lodge. Owen has a lot of trophy trout under his belt, including the 30-incher. But he's a really big advocate of catch and release. That's a breath of fresh air for those youngsters. And that's how you raise a kid, and you teach them to pass it on to the other kids. And, man, he's been doing a great job. Our redfish, our people love to catch redfish. We're staying on a good pattern lately. All the spring tides have those reds scattered over the flats and in the back sloughs and bayous. The higher tides, they encourage those reds to work the grass line where those shrimp love to hide. It's an educated catch, but you got to get it right up tight along that grassy shoreline where those shrimp like to hide. In Matagorda, most of the boaters are hitting the points and structures along the south shoreline with live shrimp. They stop for 5 minutes. They don't get a bite. They move on. Some days you stop on a point, you never have to leave. Other days, it may be one fish, it may be 2 fish, then you bounce around. That's kind of been what we've been doing this week a little bit. Bull redfish are all over the beaches and jetties. Guys on foot, they're tossing big chunks of crab and mullet in the first gut on the high tide, while jetty anglers are working the ocean side on the incoming tide. Redfish have saved the day for many of Capt this time of year. The wind will blow this time of year, 15 to 20 knots. That's what it's been doing in Matagorda. That's why those tides are pumped up. But those high tides really allow you more real estate to fish. Those back lakes come alive and really burn the drags for those redfish. Offshore, Freeport, Mike Siegel, Real Thrill Charter, said those bull redfish are really tight on the beach, and they're also all the way out to 35 foot of water. There's lots of bonnet heads and black-tip shrimp, black-tip sharks eating sardines in the same water. Red snapper continue to produce in the state waters, although our stiff southerly flow has made it a little bumpy out there. And Michael Quebec said swordfish are good about 80 miles out, but like I said, the weather, because we've had the wind and the low pressure in the Gulf, weather's made it tough to stay on that bite. as spring rolls into the summer, it's just only going to get better. Our winds are going to calm. That big pond's going to give us another shot at all those pelagics. That's another great week in the Garmin Middle Coast region. We ask you to please take care of our bays and release more than you take, and just treat the bays like it's your backyard, and just give it a little tender love and care.
Good advice there, Bink. Thank you so much for batting cleanup for us. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the MirrOlure hotspots from the Middle Coast region. Captain Bink says the trout are good in the back lakes for waders. Toss in MirrOlure, soft dines. The redfish are good along the shorelines, tight to the grass on bass sausage and live shrimp under a mid-coast popping cork.
Well, guys, we're supposed to have decent weather, good conditions this weekend, so make sure you get out there. Rick, please put this in your mouth. You've been known for Fish Bites action. I just want to know how it tastes. What do you think? It smells like garlic. No, not the same.
I think his face says it all.
It ain't Fish Bites, baby. It don't taste like potatoes.
No
potatoes.
I think I'm going to need some tin cup to rinse it out.
You know what else you're going to need some tin cup for this week? Tax day is coming up, guys.
Oh,
so grab yourself some tin cup, go catch some fish.
Get some
I
of
was
this.
lying about being rich. I don't have to pay
Thanks
taxes.
for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Have a good weekend. Wait, what about me?
Don't
Dave, you
drink
want
it.
some?